What's up, guys? How you doing? I'm Paul.
I'm Morgan.
In today's video, I thought it would be really interesting to address and assess some of the popular other Christian influencers that are tackling this topic, this recent news, if you will, about Matt Chandler stepping down, the Instagram DM situation. And yeah, I'm getting on. It feels like every time I get on YouTube, another Christian influencer has made a response video or maybe is tackling some layer to this.
Yes.
And so I'm like, and I was looking through them today. What's this person saying? Ooh, this person's bringing something up here that I may or may not agree with. So we thought this video would be a really neat one to break things down. And Morgan, may I just say, I know that you could have the baby any day now, and yet you choose to be right here in front of this camera, in front of this audience. Kudos to you. Give this video a thumbs up if you're glad to have Morgo, the trooper.
This might be my last video, y'all.
We'll see. It could be because you could give birth tonight.
It might not be because I went into labor. It just might be the end for me.
Well, we'll see. We'll take it one day at a time. But anyway, guys, Morgan, tell them to subscribe.
Subscribe if you're new here. We give commentary on culture, social issues, and faith to help you be in the world,
but of the word. Amen. So we're about to get into some specifics. I'm about to address some specific YouTubers. You saw some of them in the thumbnail. I feel like there is a healthy way to handle this. There's a gossipy, divisive way to do this. And then there's a healthy, we're just bringing up good dialogue that the church, I believe, can benefit from. And that's what we desire to do. We prayed before this. And Lord, just be glorified in this video. So right out of the gate, let's just get started, Morgan.
Okay.
With the first YouTuber. I put Christian influencers in the title. Most of these are YouTubers, but it expands slightly beyond YouTube, and you'll see what I mean here in a moment. But the first one, who is it, Morgan?
Spencer Smith.
Dun, 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 dun. I mean, dude, that look, he is looking straight in your soul.
Said he looks scary.
Well, he is
mean.
He considers himself.
Spencer, smile, man.
Hey. He considers himself someone who is very into doctrine. I think his slogan is "Doctrine Matters."
So that means you can't smile.
Pull this picture up again.
You think Jesus didn't smile?
Okay.
Jesus was probably the most into doctrine.
Okay, but Jesus was also a man of sorrows. So if we pulled up a picture of Jesus with looking sorrowful, would you make fun?
No, because that's Jesus.
Okay, well, so Morgan's kicking things off a little bit. Prego, sass. But no, I'm not gonna let her though. Yes, he looks intense. He's big on doctrine.
Yes.
I don't want to let his picture. I wanted his picture to be up for a little while we start talking, and then you take it down. You can shrink it a little bit if you want.
Sakes.
You can shrink it a little bit if you want. So Spencer Smith, his video. You guys know the situation. If you don't hop out of this one and go watch, you can watch our previous video on the happenings, the difficult happenings behind the Matt Chandler situation. Get caught up before you continue onto this video. We have linked the videos that we're about to address. We've linked them in full in the description. So you guys, please, by all means, go watch those. But in Spencer Smith's video that he dropped a few days ago, here was one of the things that he hit very hard on. And I want to address this before we move on to the next YouTuber that kind of counterpoints it. He said, I'm going to quote him. It may not be exact, but it's close to what he said in his video. He said that Matt Chandler bowed to the divine feminine. He bowed to the woke. He bowed to the false doctrine. And then he went on to say, bad doctrine always results in bad morals. And just real quick, he did say, this is not something he delights in. There's Matt Chandler's family's involved, the other person's family. But then he went on to really drive this home. Just that last statement, Morgan, bad doctrine always results in bad morals. Right out of the gate, you're hearing this. And there has been a number Christian TikTok, Christian Twitter, Christian YouTube, an influx of voices on this topic. And there's been a number of people that have said, well, Matt Chandler has gone woke, if you will. And then you hear Spencer Smith say this. What are some thoughts going through your head?
I understand where he's coming from with the idea of like if you start accepting one thing as like theologically accurate when it's not, what's going to make you not accept something else that's not theologically accurate or doctrinally accurate? And it could become a snowball effect. So I get what he's saying. I don't necessarily agree or think like, oh yes, because Matt Chandler believes in certain wokeism things.
And I'll share a bit on that in a second.
That means this is obviously why he failed in this part.
Right, or this was obviously doomed to happen.
Right.
Because he's embraced perhaps certain racial woke ideologies. And Brylan and Lisa, shout out to Brylan, who's in the chat today, made a video and addressed some similar things. And I hopped on his live stream while Brylan was talking, and he was addressing some of the woke things that Matt Chandler is engaged in. I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of that. And when I started hearing some of the breakdown, I got curious. So before we get to our next YouTuber's response that kind of counteracts Spencer, I just YouTubed, I said, Matt Chandler woke. And of course, you got like a number of these videos that come up from heresy hunter type channels that really go there, you know. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to be completely honest. Again, Morgan and I appreciate Matt Chandler. We listened to a sermon of his a week and a half ago, but I haven't watched his extensively. When I watched a few of those videos on why Matt Chandler went woke, I'll just share a couple of the things they addressed. They addressed that Matt, and I watched a clip of it, he was getting very passionate, kind of like saying, I'm going to continue to talk about the racial injustice stuff. And he said at one point, like 300 of his church members left, but he's like, I'm not going to shy away from this. I feel like it's biblical. He mentioned something along the lines of that if he was going to hire, and you guys can go search for this if you want, I'm just very much paraphrasing it, but if he was going to hire the choice between a black pastor or a white pastor with the same credentials, he would hire the black pastor. Ooh, that's so sounding weird. A little weird. I don't know all the details behind it. He also mentioned that there is some systemic racism type stuff. So I don't love hearing that, but what I was about to say was, as I was watching these videos, I actually expected it to be a little worse. And when I was hearing Matt talk, I was kind of like, okay, may not agree with that, but to me, it wasn't like horrible.
Right.
So then when I hear Spencer Smith saying, you know, he bowed to the divine feminine because he's not speaking out harder against women pastors. He bowed to the woke. He bowed to false doctrine. Therefore, we have what we see now. Bad doctrine always results in bad morals. I'm kind of like, personally, let's pump the brakes a little bit. I don't think it got bad enough from what I've seen to say, so of course he's going to be having these, whatever you want to call what happened over Instagram DM. So I feel personally, from what I know and have seen, that is a little harsh. That's my perspective. You guys are allowed to have different perspectives. Sounds like you're pretty much on the same page. But again, Spencer Smith is all about the doctrine. Doctrine does matter. I feel like he went a little overboard there. Let's move on to our next influencer. What do you?
Oh.
What do you?
Ruslan?
No, not Ruslan. What do you meme? Hey, if you guys...
What do you, Ruslan?
Ruslan, you're coming up, buddy. You're coming up, buddy. Anytime you see an influencer that you maybe enjoy their videos, give this video a thumbs up. Help out those algorithms. So, what do you meme? I watched his video. Actually, he's made 2 videos. This was his most recent, Morgan.
Okay.
He said something along these lines. He said almost this exact phrase.
Okay.
He feels like many are rejoicing and saying because Matt went woke, primarily with race, that we can assume the worst about Chandler. And then John went on to say, racism in America and texting and the texting situation have nothing to do with each other. So he is on the flip side saying, okay, perhaps Matt's saying that there is racism, blah, 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 and then this happening, they don't have anything to do with each other, where Spencer Smith is saying they're connected. Mm-hmm. Thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with What Do You Mean? That's his name.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Yeah, I again, like I said, I see where Spencer is coming from, but I just don't think it's fair to say, oh, because he speaks out on this thing way too much or has gone too far over to this side on whatever, that definitely means that everything else he does in his life is going to fall apart, because I just don't think that that's true. I think there's a lot of solid people out there that believe certain things that maybe lean more towards one side of the aisle on some issue that isn't necessarily a gray issue. Whatever, you guys know what I'm trying to say. I think I forgot what I was trying to say, but yes.
Well, it kind of, to me, so far, what we've seen is a Spencer Smith figure who deals more in black and whites. Because you're talking about gray issue. Mm-hmm. And yes, like there is some stuff that I genuinely do not agree with.
Right. If Matt Chandler came out and said, I fully am pro-choice, right, then I'd be like, okay.
Right. But if he's trying to decipher, and that's one thing What Do You Mean said, it's like, do you believe in Jesus Christ as the way to heaven? Like there's at the center. And then when you start getting into some of this race stuff, there is a little bit of, you see people falling on different sides of the aisle. But like you said there, if he were to straight up say something that is just non-negotiable, and the interesting thing is Matt has actually been very vocal, to my knowledge, about being pro-life. He has stood on certain issues really well. And John Macrae from What Do You Mean went on to say, like, from the stuff I saw, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he was kind of like, it wasn't as bad as maybe I thought it was going to be. I'm kind of in that same boat. Yeah. I don't think we need to just assume the worst. Let's move on to the next person, Ruslan.
Okay, great.
Leave his picture up there for a minute.
All right, we'll leave his glowing head up there.
So Ruslan, this is actually very interesting. He got into, on Twitter, there was a guy, and I'm about to lay it out because this is going to get very interesting. And I'm intrigued to see where you fall on this. This is about to get very interesting. So I'm about to get to something that went on Twitter regarding this with Ruslan. But when I was watching Ruslan's initial video, I felt like, okay, Ruslan is actually tackling this in a similar way to our first video. It felt like we were kind of hitting on the same stuff, seeing it pretty similarly. But at one point, Ruslan started talking about just the whole idea of men and women's friendships, a married man and a married woman that are not married to each other being friends, being close friends. And Ruslan said, ultimately he said this: is there ever a time for a married man to be DMing casually and frequently with a married woman? I think absolutely not. And Ruslan went on to say that he keeps his female friendships from becoming very close. Okay? Ultimately, we hear that and it's like, yeah, he came down pretty hard on it, but applause. Like, I think that more people need to come down hard on that. But then this happened on Twitter. Pull up the first Twitter. So this guy, not sure who he is, and Ruslan responded to it, so I'll get to that in a second. But read that first tweet, Morgan, and then just kind of continue this tweet thread. This is very interesting, and I'm genuinely curious to hear what you guys think. Comment in the comment section where you fall on this topic of men and women's friendships, because I saw someone that's a beloved subscriber of ours comment and it seemed more like she agreed with this person. So I would like to hear where you guys fall. Read it, Morgan.
Christian men should have female friends, actually. We should also be wise and attentive to appropriate boundaries, sexual and otherwise, in all relationships. But authentic Christian community can't exist as long as we view male female friendships as inherently dangerous.
So that tweet was kind of like, I think, okay. But then when he goes on, read the next few.
Hyper cautious Zion?
That's Christian.
Zion?
He's just abbreviating Christian with the X. Hyper cautious Christian. That's just a
hyper-cautious Christian gender sorting marginalizes women, buys into a cultural fraudulent narrative that all relationships are erotic/sexual and smacks of a wishful thinking, naive heteronormativity. It teaches men to be hypersexual, perpetuating the problem
Can you speak up a little bit?
proposes to solve. It's taking everything in me to speak it all.
I'll take it, baby. And then you go to his next tweet. This guy just continues, and I genuinely am. I find this conversation very interesting. So the guy goes on to say, Christian gender segregation also communicates to women that the best way they can serve their community is by shutting up and leaving men alone, that their presence and input is unwelcome and unhelpful, not exactly a robust vision for using your gifts to build up the body of Christ. He goes on to say, this culture of fear teaches men that they are would-be predators and women that they are would-be seductresses, and it looks absolutely nothing like the ministry of Jesus. In the earliest descriptions of Christian community.
This is so extreme.
So it sounds like this guy would be advocating for that the village church and the elders went too hard on Matt Chandler. It's kind of what it sounds like based off this, that they should be actually being more lenient.
Mm-hmm. Jesus, first of all, was not married, so there's that. And I don't think any of these women that were a part of his ministry were married either, as far as we know. And I would assume that if they were married, their husbands were a part of the group that walked along.
I think there was one Mary that followed him that was the wife of kind of like a rich guy.
The one who...
I'm just saying, I think there was one of the I think it was one of the Marys, but it may not have been, was like the wife of a...
And do we know if he just stayed back at home?
Yeah,
and just
I don't know.
Bye, go on, leave me.
I don't know. Well...
All right, well, either way.
And then, so you guys get the feeling, I'll read one more. He said, not all relational intimacy is erotic/sexual. Most isn't, actually. We intuitively understand this when we think about siblings, which is, exactly the metaphor used to describe male-female relationships in the New Testament. So he's making a case, even though he is sounding... Oh, is Ruslan in the chat?
Ruslan.
What's up, Ruslan? Ruslan, we are discussing what happened with you and Zachary on Twitter right now. So all I'm saying, Morgan, is that he is articulating some interesting things that some would look at, like the person that commented on our previous video. Mm-hmm. And the person commenting said something along the lines of a married woman or a married man, after so many years of getting familiar with their spouse, it is actually their heart kind of yearns for another relationship of someone with the opposite sex. And I was reading that, like, it kind of caught me off guard, and I commented like, ooh, maybe they should be that should be able to be fulfilled with another woman, like someone of the same sex rather than someone of the opposite sex. But you have this guy making this case. So let's see.
To me, that's major red flags. That comment is very, very dangerous.
I don't agree with the comment either, but there's obviously people that think this way. Read what Ruslan responded, or I can read it, Morgan, since...
Yeah, you're going to read it.
You're a little short of breath. But Ruslan responded to Zachary and said, is it appropriate for married men to grab lunch, grab coffee, not work-related, go on hikes, lift at the gym alone with their female friend, or no? Then we're talking about semantics. how we define a friend is crucial. He goes on to say, of course, men and women should be friendly. No one ever considers that maybe some, not all, Christian men just want to avoid the optics. Or perhaps Christian men know most men can't be friends in the very specific ways I laid out with women they're attracted to. Is that wrong? Morgan, it sounds like you would definitely agree with Ruslan, what Ruslan was saying here.
Yeah, I feel like that guy's tweets about how, like, this damages whatever he said.
Women's.
Yeah, makes men out to be these.
Teaches men to be hypersexual, perpetuating the problem is it proposes to solve.
Yeah, I think that's just super extreme and dramatic. And I personally have worked at 2 churches, and I have been a part of worship teams at other churches, a few. And, I have had friend relationships with male dudes, with dudes. And, like, it was a very just whatever, like, it's not like I don't
Casual?
yeah, I no, I've never once felt like any church that I've ever gone to growing up, and as a grown woman now, like, the men in my church are like, stay back, woman. And I'm like, stay back, man. I don't want you to think that I'm, like, I don't know. I think when you're a mature adult, you can have a friendship in that it's very surface levelly, like Ruslan kind of explained. Of course you can be friendly to the opposite sex, no one's saying that. And stop acting like that's what the church is trying to say, is like, oh, you literally can't even be friendly to the opposite sex. Like, that's ridiculous. It's not what churches are saying. And if they are, they need to chill out.
So this obviously could be a whole video within itself. Yeah. What should it look like for a Christian married man? What should friendships look like for him? What should friendships look like for the woman, Christian married woman? I would love to hear your all's thoughts in the comments, particularly on this. What does it look like for you? Are you married? What's it look like? I just can think for ourselves. I've had jobs since we've been married where there's females, and it's tricky. I've gotten car rides from females to certain.
Since we've been married?
Maybe when we were dating.
Definitely not when we were married.
To volleyball?
But I have. Volleyball?
Oh, well, I mean, being on the worship team. Yeah. So you're like going early to church. And so it is something to definitely be mindful of. But ultimately, it's not a culture of shame, but it's a culture of being above reproach, particularly when you're in a position of authority within the church. But even if you're not, still being above reproach.
Using your wisdom, using your discernment, discussing things with your spouse. And the comment about after several years of being married to your spouse, you get so comfortable with them, you need another type of relationship with a guy. That's just gross to me. I'm sorry. I think that's super inappropriate and immature. Love you who wrote that, but I think that is very, very dangerous and unwise. If you are looking to be fulfilled in some way or another by another man because your husband can't fulfill you in that way anymore, even if it's an emotional fulfillment, that creates a bond between you and that person, that man that is not your husband, that is just not appropriate. So
it's fascinating. Sorry. I mean, this is a fascinating discussion, and I can see people making the case for we need to normalize healthy man-woman married relationships, but I've seen too many that have ended up in emotional affairs, in physical affairs, to where it's like, I'm going to pull a little bit more of a Mike Pence and say, I don't even want to be in the same room so that I am above reproach, so that I don't even give the appearance. And that kind of leads us, not to say I'll never be in the same room as another woman, right, but I'm going to be cautious. I'm more with Ruslan on this. That leads us to this next one. This was from a guy that we have an interesting history. Pull him up.
It's Church Chad.
Anybody know of Church Chad? We have an interesting history He's bigger on Instagram and TikTok. I think he's close to 500,000 on TikTok. Let me see. His name is Josh Benson. We have a history. He used a soundbite from our Christian Modesty Bikinis video. He used it and threw some shade our way. But hey, he's forgiven. He ultimately got pretty passionate on this topic on TikTok, and he said something along the lines of this, and it kind of fits in with the last topic that we were just having. Many evangelicals and ex-evangelicals, he called himself, I'm an evangelical, but you got these ex-evangelicals, former evangelicals, and current evangelicals, that many are screaming, we need accountability for our pastors. But when someone like Matt, in this instance, does things right, meaning he went about it the right way, he stepped down, he showed his wife and so forth, got the elders involved, he went about it the right way, we still drag him through the mud. Many want views.
Yeah, I agree with him. I think I've just seen a few tweets that are like, oh, this is what he deserves for going woke. And these are people who like are claiming to be Christians. And I'm just like, that is so gross and so pathetic of you. Like, do you think that that is how Jesus is responding to this? And like, when you say these harsh things like that, you're not thinking about his wife, his children. You're not thinking about the entire village church that absolutely is broken over this. Like, we received some messages from people that go to the village saying like, please pray for our church, like we are struggling. And so it's like, this affects so many people. So to get on Twitter or make a YouTube video or a TikTok being like, this is what he gets,
particularly those that are saying, and I think we've had comments like this saying, oh, there's definitely more to the story. Yeah. He definitely did more than what has been broadcasted or put out there. It's like,
I do not like that.
It kind of goes with Allie B. Stuckey's video where she said, you know what? You guys have actually crossed over to where you're bearing false witness. Literally. You're a 10 commandment you're breaking. You're bearing false witness saying, oh, he definitely went further, and they're trying to hide the rest. This is only the tip of the iceberg. It's like, we don't know that.
Right.
And so if you're, using, because he's woke in certain areas, he definitely did this. No, I don't think that that's fair to say. And you're bearing false witness if you're making tweets or posts like that. Mm-hmm. So as hard as it is for me to stomach agreeing with Church Chad,
stop.
As humbling as it is, I'm kidding. I'm mostly kidding. I agree in that I think Church Chad was onto something, and this has gotten, in the age of social media, when everyone's got an opinion and you got people that maybe are posting that don't need to be posting.
Well, honestly, like, I really appreciate Costi Hinn, but I didn't love his message about it, whether it was on Twitter or on Instagram, saying, I hope that this truth is the whole truth. I'm kind of like, how about we just take it one step at a time and not put that thought into thousands upon thousands of people's minds of like, this might not be the whole truth, guys.
Yes, but Morgan, I mean, that's a fair, that if that's done in a respectful way, that's a fair statement, because we've seen,
I don't like it.
Fair enough, but I would say we've seen so many where it does look like they release something small and then it turns out to be more. Mm-hmm. I think that is a fair sentiment, even though I hear what you're saying. I think Ruslan mentioned in his video, like, if this, and we said that in our video, I said, if this is all, what we've seen truly is all that there was, I went on to say, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that that's it. Mm-hmm. But I think it is fair to say, because of the track record of promiscuity within the church and church leadership, that
yes, I just would caution people to be careful.
Fair enough. You guys, comment below. Let us know where you're at, particularly on, we just covered so much. Any of those Christian influencers, let us know your thoughts on what they had to say, the angles they came from, but also on just the relationships that married men should be having with married women. Do you see some, are you kind of in agreement in some ways with the guy's tweet thread? Or are you more where Morgan and I are at in Ruslan, where no, it's better to be cautious and be above reproach? Let us know. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you appreciated the conversation taking place here. And give this video a thumbs up for the people that we mentioned in this video. We love you. Morgan, I love you. I know that you weren't feeling amazing this video, but you were a trooper.
Oh my goodness.
And we will see you guys.
So loud.
We will see you guys very soon. Have hope.
And be free. If you're in the live chat, we'll be right back.
As you may have noticed, we get very few brand deals, which is why our patrons, the names you see here, are so important.
You guys really are the lifeblood of this ministry. We could not do this without you all. If you believe in this content and you want to partner with us on Patreon, click the link below or just go to patreon.com/Paulandmorganshow.